Back on track, Zubul asks what would happen if they refuse, and guys, can we please chill on throwing one of the youngest members of the cast under the bus, please? Even if they had a fully developed brain, this is not only an incredibly human response, but also a much gentler way of asking than they usually default to. Caine is the one in the wrong for wig-snatching Disney in response to a single understandable question, yet everyone is throwing blame at the one who's blameless for this specifically. Okay, Caine snaps his fingers and breaks all the lamps that keep the circus blindingly bright, with us seeing him standing on stage like he's a backroom's cryptid before the last light goes out. The spotlight comes up, and he's got a piano, and oh no, he's playing it. Oh no, he can play piano!
So, question, am I the only one who gets really horned up over guys that play piano? I don't know, I think I just have a thing for fingers. That sounded... well, okay, I shouldn't be saying like, oh, that sounded bad. I shouldn't be so self-conscious, because that's literally half my content. The other half is, having no brain.
So putting aside that realization, why am I having so many come to Jesus moments in this goddamn episode? What the hell? Like, what are they even gonna do? They aren't that I need to shut up! Get it together, you crazy goddamn bonobo! Be so fucking serious right now.
Okay.
So, people have likened this to a Disney villain song, and there's definitely a connection there, but I think it's more accurate to say that Caine is singing an I Am song. And isn't that just so fitting given the inspiration for the character? But I Am songs are not villain exclusive. They just tend to be viewed as such because they're almost always contrasted against I Want songs, which are normally sung by the protagonist to get us on their side. There are in fact songs that are sung by not the villain that are I Am songs, and it's not just here, it's just kind of a rarity. Hell, I was originally gonna just make a video that specifically compares the one who's running the show to Aladdin's Friend Like Me, and no, it isn't just cause both lead vocalists here are caked beyond the reasonable supply of 57 bakeries.
Nothing ever escapes these cakes.
Sorry, I can't not tangent. Let me try and get back on track. So, another teensy disclaimer. I know all of jack and shit about musicals. Most of what I know is from YouTubers who got their own music theory degrees and Wikipedia, because fuck you, it is effective as a source. I ain't no Sideways, and I ain't no Howard Ho. So, I recognize that I don't have the tools and know-how necessary to fully break down Caine's musical breakdown. But I can at least draw attention to the parts that start the rusty cogs in my brain to turn, and so I, and hopefully you, will be satisfied with this finished project consisting of analysis that is in my wheelhouse, while I leave full deep dive musical analysis to the pros. You want to know how little I know about music? I had to go to Reddit to ask people what fucking genre this song would qualify as. This is not a dig at the lovely folk who had time to answer me. This is a dig at me, the dumbass making this for you. So, let me ask you a question. You like jazz? The fact that there may be people watching this video who have no knowledge of the B-movie is going to haunt me until I get put in the recycle bin, I swear to God. Jazz is ultimately a genre of rebellion. Locals of Africa just minding their own business got yoinked by European colonizers, and they got told no 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 with a little pretentious finger wag when they dared to indulge in one of the little remnants of culture they could take with them. Their music. No stomping, no clapping, no hand drums, nothing. Now, we're following the black folk that got taken to America primarily, since this series is likeliest pulling from American jazz. There are other groups of people who got taken to Brazil, for example. But those people heard out the European colonizers, went, alright, bet. I made a fuck ton of beautiful musical genres that we still draw inspiration from to this day. Namely, the impetus for the creation of the rhythm-heavy jazz we know today was basically a hybrid of ragtime and blues, which both drew from old cultural African tunes. Point being, as I said before, jazz is rebellion. But if you Persona 5 fans are still there, that's not something I gotta tell you. You played a game all about rebelling, and guess what genre's leaking from its glittery, glitzy pores but jazz? But this song is about being in charge, right? It's literally titled The One Who's Running the Show, and unlike Friend Like Me, where the lyrics run in direct contrast to the song title, the lyrics are about how Caine is the one running everything. And yet, one of the two times where he says the title verbatim, it's immediately followed by
And don't forget who's running the show.
bubble. Eating them. Caine pops him, of course, but why did he choose then to show up? I'm honestly struggling a bit with commentary for the song part of the episode in particular, but I think that's because, to me, it's more difficult to go off structure for a song. It's hard to find hidden meaning when what we should be paying attention to is the choreography and lip flaps looking good in this generated chaos that only exists for musical numbers. I don't know, that's why I'm not gonna spend as much time on this part, comparatively. We've got this bit. No, not that one!
I'm the host, I run the place. Caine, that is my name.
He says, Caine, that is my name, right when he fucks with Gangle, and I feel like that's not coincidence considering Gangle is also the one who asked Abel if his name was something he picked.
What should we call you? Do you have a name?
I do. My name is Abel.
Like, is that the name you picked? Or...
Yeah, I thought it would be cool.
After he had this cinematic reveal that was dead ass, only framed like this and sound cued like this for the theory heads and people that pick everything apart till it's a Jackson fucking Pollock painting. Just like me. So of course everyone else in canon is just gonna be like, the fuck is he doing? And we know, canonically, that Caine is not his original name because Kinger says,
Caine was our first semi-successful attempt at that. I can't remember what we originally called him.
why are people not talking about this? The last thing I'll bring up in regard to this big bang show of musical breaking down is something that I sorta alluded to with jazz being a genre built upon a foundation of rebellion, but this is just one big cope fest for Caine. I have two supporting pieces of evidence. Firstly, this whole song, minus this bit,
Getting through.
and this one,
Just feeling used. Oh, what a goddamn shame.
God, that's going to haunt my dreams and not in the way you think, are sung in the voice we hear from him all the time. Except when he's questioning Bubble.
Why are you like this?
Except when the Ringmaster persona isn't up.
They look happy.
They do, don't they?
Except when he isn't masking.
And since when were you in charge?
So, I actually didn't know what masking was until I watched E's video about Farina way back when I still gave a fuck about Genshin. But I will always give a fuck about Farina. That's my down bitch, that's my soldier. And turns out it's incredibly relevant to anyone with even a baby breadcrumb of the tism in their veins. Now, I used the Cleveland Clinic Health Essentials article for this definition, but all the other sources I consulted lined up basically word for word. Masking is a way of representing yourself to be more like how others expect you to be. It's a way of hiding yourself, or parts of yourself that you don't want to present to the world. Not in a nefarious way, more like a meeting societal expectations kind of way. When we're masking, we're disguising our true feelings or our true abilities, Dr. Kaufman explains. People may mask what they perceive to be their deficiencies, or they can use masking to fit in better or meet other people's expectations. I'm not entirely sure if Caine is doing this for some third party we don't know about, or if this is a remnant of trying to be a good boy for his programmers, but it's at least obvious to me that Caine's song is not how he really feels, as 95% of this was performed in a voice that we know is put on to gel with his Ringmaster persona, and he's tap dancing. As far as I can tell, tap dancing is universally viewed as an expression of jubilation, of elation. If he's truly been waiting in the wings to do this kind of shit to everyone he's supposed to care for, then him practically clicking his heels makes sense, but we know how he got here, at least in the short term. Short term being the series of weeks Pomni has been here. Caine does not want to be hated. He cares about the humans even if it's not in the same way humans care about each other normally. The idea of not making them happy, of not fulfilling his purpose, unnerves and upsets him. And yet, here he is, doing something that only the happiest of individuals would default to. It makes me wonder just how deeply the sad clown paradox is embedded into Caine's code with how happy he seemed to be in almost every other scenario. His true emotions have peaked out on occasion when they're aggressive ones like anger or annoyance or even panic, but only in episode 8 have we seen more passive emotions like sadness and loneliness. Sure, we've seen anxiety or existential dread in previous episodes, but those were, again, framed with a comedic bend. Episode 8 has Caine's malaise on full display with no sense of irony, and I think we are meant to go back, rewatch and reframe because of it. My second piece of evidence regarding this whole song being the heaviest dose of copium known to mankind is that through the framing, the choreography, and the lyrics, Caine's intent in his song is to act as though he is the main event of the stage show, while everyone else is literally a backup dancer. But isn't it strange that Caine, from the beginning, describes himself as the host? His outfit makes it very clear that he sees himself as the ringmaster of this circus.
My name is Caine. I'm your ringmaster.
However, despite being the quintessential leader of a circus troupe, the role of a ringmaster is not to be the constant center of attention. According to the Ultimate Pop Culture Wiki, a ringmaster's role, aside from behind-the-scenes delegation and advertisement, is a guide for the audience, directing and redirecting attention as performers make their rounds in an arena. The performers pull off their acts in these big rings in the tent, hence why the chief director is the master of the rings. The ringmaster. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Caine, once again, fundamentally misunderstands this, as if this was reality, he would have no performers to point attention to after the stunt he pulled, meaning Homeboy would have been out of a goddamn job. Bosses are seen as the incredibly powerful pieces of the company puzzle, and yet they would not be able to function as boss or leader if they did not have people to lead. This metaphor is even played straight with Kinger needing everyone to cover his back while he hacks into Caine's code. While he's not the de facto leader of the group, when it comes to chess, the king is not only the most vulnerable piece, but also the most critical, meaning everyone needs to pull out all the stops and put their best on the line if anything is going to get done. Companies of any kind, including circus companies, rely on everyone to make things happen. The leader for direction, and everyone else for all the skills in their wheelhouse. What makes this scene so tragic in the end is that, past all the sadism and discomfort of watching these characters' autonomy be ripped from their core, whether it's Caine being possessed or masking heavier than he ever has that's causing him to sing in a voice that isn't really his, is that Caine does not understand that even as a computer program, he needs people to function. So, going back to when Caine says,
Surely they don't want to actually leave me, right?
The wording here is throwing me off. What is leaving to him? I feel like, to him, Abstraction is leaving.
They won't abstract. They won't leave me.
Abstraction has been consistently symbolized in this show through, essentially, the visualization of the hive mind. There's Jax's trypophobia that ties into abstracted creatures literally triggering viewers with trypophobia. There's the first shot we get of an abstracted circus member descending into a pit that's just darkness and eyes. And then Jax's near abstraction almost feels like he's submitting to something bigger, something greater than himself, as he, as an individual, shrinks into almost nothing before he's violently ripped out of this process. Caine loves humans, remember? And one of the key defining points about humans is our own individuality. Every single human is different from the last and the next. However, when pulled into a hive mind scenario, humans lose that individuality and submit to the whims and needs of the collective. There is a stagnation to the human soul that happens in this type of situation. Whereas on an individual level, the human brain and body should be constantly changing. Human bodies and brains need change. It's necessary. Despite Caine's unwillingness to change to run in tandem with the individuality of the humans he cares for, he does not want the humans to lose that individuality. His intent becomes clearer of what he wants to do with this song. He's issuing a challenge. We almost see the full extent of the abstraction process through Jax's eyes in episode 7. And what seems to occur is based on one thing: lack of stimulation. Jax teeters on the edge of mental breakdown 3 separate times in the narrative, but that has no proven connection to abstraction. Meanwhile, we see his eyes are the same color as any abstractions once Pomni knocks on his door and wakes him from his nap. He has spiraled those 3 times, but those are all tied to some form of mental overstimulation. When he almost abstracts, it's from no stimulation at all. In fact, some people theorize that this isn't a digital hallucination of Ribbit, that this is the real Ribbit. sensing their friend's vulnerability and poking their head out of the cellar to try and entice their old buddy to come on in. The water's fine. This not only recontextualizes what happened to Kaufmo and everyone else, but it also recontextualizes Caine's methodology. Caine was not kidding about prime your brains, because if the brains give out and stop acting individually, they become another cog in the abstraction hive mind machine, giving Caine one less person to create for. It would make sense that Caine would start creating adventures like the ones we've seen once he learned that new minds can enter his realm. In episode 5, after positing his newest ideas to the cast, Ragatha comments,
I don't know, they all sound a little... dark?
to which Caine responds,
I can't tell a compelling story where nothing bad happens. Where's the intrigue? The stakes?
which on its own was just indicative of Caine's stubbornness and attachment to his own ideas, but is now recontextualized as a greater part of a process he's been fully committed to. To keep people from abstracting, he must compel, he must intrigue, he must keep the mind active and aware with something to lose on the line. And now, if he can't prime their brains with fun, he'll do it with pain. 6 people abstracted under his watch when he didn't know what he was doing before. He won't let that happen again. And then it happens another 6 fucking times for good measure. For now, let's get back to the fun little fella doing his whole song and dance, which, oh my god, the animators had so much fucking fun with him in this segment alone. Hey, if the intent was to get me to hate this fucker, it ain't working when he's pulling a Steve Urkel vibe in this bit, going full Futaba and dancing in Starlight in this bit, being just really cunty in this one, and getting me to question my sanity in others.
Alright, I get it!
Sorry, I had to put this aside somewhere. I know the animators got paid, but I would literally give every animator here 57 generations worth of life funds if I could. Their work is goddamn priceless in this show! Anyway, back to it.
You know what? I'm about to say it.
Icon. Absolute cinema. That is my boy, and I am not taking questions. So, adventures are no longer a polite suggestion. Smash cut to several days later, and something I touched on in the musical segment and is hard to miss immediately after the song, Caine is much bigger now. Caine is not shy about saying he's the one in control, and what better way to do that than just by outsizing the competition? Not like that! A lot of Caine's behavior going forward leans into a more malicious persona, acting like the humans are toys he's quickly getting sick of when all the evidence up to this point suggests that this isn't how he truly feels. Call me and I can fix him, girly, if you're dead set on it. It's better than the alternative of just ignoring that he's clearly suffering.
You have no idea how bad I am. You think I'm so great and I'm so mature and I always know what to do. But that's not true. I'm a monster.
I feel myself getting a headache. Sorry, where was I again? Part of the act includes big things like pulling individual circus members into his office for some quality time, including a slight little reference to the trailer that started it all, and small things like not fixing... Oh, that's not a happy mask. Gangle's mask like he did back in episode 5. But Caine's actions here don't read to me like someone who suddenly learned what hate is and is directing it at everyone. They read to me like a victim of abuse having enough and lashing out at others in the same way that he's seen get results, ripping bodily autonomy and bodily consistency out of the hands of the people he loves because he does not know how to be angry and handle it healthily. It all gets to a point where he nearly reaches a watershed moment, and in a bizarre moment that feels very intentionally multifaceted, Caine starts by grabbing Pomni, calling her
It's the relatability we've been missing!
Which, man, that's gotta be a dig at some people who still call her just an audience insert before he pauses and begins to muse aloud about what the point of this has all been. As he wonders, he jostles Pomni around like a little doll in his hand before seeming to realize he's probably given her motion sickness and patting her head. I've seen people react to this one of 2 ways, and there is no in-between. It's either aw or ugh. It could be seen as a aw, he does still care when he pats the palm-top Pomni after accidentally making her dizzy, and it could just as easily be seen as she's literally his plaything for this entire sequence, this is disgusting. And I can see both points of view working here. Perhaps even that both intersect. Caine does still care, but the way he's expressing said care is something victims of power abuse are sensitive to. And rightfully so. honestly makes rewatching this episode, even for this video, difficult to do on my own, because all it reminds me of is...
And around here you can quote me on...
Vanilla cookies are so light they melt in your mouth.
And you hoo-hoo, and you hoo-hoo, and you hoo-hoo, and you hoo-hoo. Swiss cream sandwich!
Fucking stop it already! What's most critical here is that Caine is finally stopping to think about all he's been doing. He calls this an
endless onslaught of fun.
Just casually, like, I guess he calls it fun because he's the one having fun, but he just says the word fun in a vacuum, not really limiting it to himself or the humans like he did at the end of episode 7.
Come on, guys! You know I'm just here to have fun!
Which begs the question of if he genuinely conflates fun with suffering, and refers to his own ideas as
a little half-baked.
In probably the first display of self-reflection about the adventures and situations he writes proper. Ragatha, ever the peacekeeper, tries to keep conflict from happening, but Caine encountering self-conflict is necessary here, because it causes him to do something that he has never done before prior to this episode. He lets his feet touch the ground. He walks on the same ground the humans do as he paces in thought, finally letting himself occupy the same space as the people he's imprisoned with, finally meeting them on the same level and expressing some form of vulnerability. As his animations once again become more realistic, but even more so this time. He says,
and if you're not having fun, and I'm not having fun, then who is having fun?
And is turned to look at the sky like he's trying to ask some higher power for help. Bubble chimes in, little fucker probably is the one having fun here. No, I'm not going to be convinced he didn't do this until episode 9 comes out and says it in black and white. Let this age as poorly as me saying Caine would have a baby bit of a crash out in episode 8 before it came out, because that was only baby in the fact that Caine is baby girl. Shut up, brain! Speaking of baby, Bubble has one, and people think that means Bubble will still be in the circus in some way in the next episode. And you know, I'm not judging any theory at this point. Like I said, if Gooseworx wants to make you scratch your head, she's gotta make you laugh first, and I don't see how the fuck we're supposed to think Bubble has no ill intent after the shit he pulled. To think. Caine might have had a breakthrough. He was this fucking close to genuinely self-reflecting and maybe having a real conversation with the group, but their change in tone is what draws his attention. He wonders why it's happened until he has a potential realization that makes the audience's and the cast's hearts drop to their ass as, oh fucking no, he's gonna find us out.
Where's Kinger?
You could practically hear everyone's thoughts running in double time here, that something needs to happen and fast, because Caine is gonna be gone as soon as he finishes that sentence, and Pomni, brave soul she is, decides to play the Joker in the terminally online hand. Rage bait.
We think your ideas suck!
Huh?
Huh? Isn't it obvious? We wanted to bait you into testing your new ideas on us so we can make fun of them behind your back.
Ha! That's not true.
Caine is genuinely not even able to hold up his usual facade for a single sentence in the wake of the thought he's had bouncing around in his head since day one being spoken to him directly by someone he's supposed to entertain. I don't think Pomni even realizes just how deeply she's used her knife to cut him as her baiting attempt turns into actual venting. And then everyone else joins in.
You're like a
child.
You're like a child.
You lie to us constantly. You lie to us constantly.
You know who I am.
Yeah,
You lie to us constantly.
You never bother to understand what it's like in our shoes.
I'm
Caine.
You just don't listen!
He wasn't made to handle this. Caine's torture scenes are not only poorly disguised jabs at the way he was being criticized by the cast, but a call-out post on his Twitter.com that everyone who's bullying him is a hypocrite. And if you look close enough at how exactly these verbal attacks are formulated, you'll see that Caine isn't wrong. Not for the torture, that was still bad, but violently hip-checking them on the security they have and not contradicting their own desires and beliefs. Zubul calls Caine out for having a fragile ego, bold words coming from the person whose day job has been fret, and loathe themselves over what they consider appearance defects. Ragatha laments never being able to feel at home and never being understood what it's like in the cast's shoes. Wouldn't Ragatha know pretty intimately the concept of only interacting with people on a surface level? Doesn't she understand that not truly seeing the people you care about would devalue the home you try to create for them? Gangle wants to think outside the box and do things her own way? Well, didn't that just end so satisfyingly for her when the choice was placed in her hands? Jax maintains that Caine lies constantly. Oh, that's the phone ring. It's the pot wanting to talk to you, Kettle. And Pomni? Well, her critical hit to his psyche is that he just does not listen. Pomni, you were willing to give the time of day to something Caine created, something he views as a limited creature that's only an imperceptibly small fraction of his own self-expression. And yet, she's never offered him the same courtesy. I'm still a firm believer that Caine has never stopped loving humans, so he knows that the core trait that every single human being shares is hypocrisy. Rules for thee, but not for me. The idea that a person will give themselves grace for the same things they call out in others. It comes from a biological development in humans to see practical opportunities for survival as soon as they enter the chat, namely spotting things they dislike and won't be able to put up with in others, and prioritizing self-preservation over self-reflection. It's a behavior of subconscious self-importance that is necessary to unlearn if we are to forge real, lasting connection with others. Because if we don't, we will never see why these reminders of our own fallacies cloaked in a different wash of paint makes us so unhappy. We will never learn to accept others until we understand why these traits of our own make us so unhappy. And yet most people aren't even able to see past their own nose, much less the consequences of their own actions, and while the cast of the circus has come far, they still struggle with offering the same grace to Caine that they would offer themselves. So when Caine says,
"I'm gonna put you freaks in your place,"
he's literally telling them, check your privilege. If they didn't think they were so important, then they wouldn't view themselves, however subconsciously, as better than Caine for being able to process empathy. When Caine hasn't been given a real shot to prove that he's close to that breakthrough than people think. The only times he has a one-on-one interaction with the other circus members, it is something he instigates. Anytime he sat someone down, they've been either flighty and displeased with him or just outright apathetic and fake, and despite what the circus members think, Caine has been listening. He does understand people more than they give him credit for. His brain does not work the same way as others, but it still works. He's still cognizant. He's not someone to be treated as lesser. And yet here he is, being criticized and insulted and screamed at for things that the cast is too blinded by how he's categorized to understand. That they're too blinded by self-preservation to have addressed those same things for themselves. It's an experience that strikes way too close to home for way too many people. Not understanding because you weren't taught about the world. Not being understood because of the way you think. And I feel like this is more than obvious through the animation and voice performance given to Caine in the lead-in when he just... Sorry, let me try again. People, viewers, have related Caine's breakdown here to a child throwing a tantrum, and it's just not fair to categorize him that way.
I never asked for it to be this way. I never asked to be.
Why are we taught to call it this when he's not a child? He's not throwing a tantrum. He's hurting and no one is helping.
I should never have had. She was always such a bother. It seems you caused your mother a great deal of trouble.
He never got to be who he was and be free because his primary caretakers locked who he was away. Put his lash out that he knows that that's can't do this.
What's the matter?
I don't know. I have this want to talk about it. It's a need to talk. But I feel like my voice gets plugged up any time I want to talk about it in the way I usually do.
Maybe you could try a different way?
Maybe? I don't know where to start.
Well, you like to look at body language and vocal performance. Maybe try that.
Yeah, okay. So, before the torture scene starts proper, while he's getting screamed at for the way he does things, he never reacts with anger like you would expect from someone about to throw a tantrum. He tries to put back up the facade of being sure of himself, but can't even finish a single sentence before his body falls limp in submission to what he believes to be the truth. He is constantly defensive. He says,
"Do you know who I am?"
But his body language says even he isn't secure in that. When he says,
"Stop that,"
that's the closest we get to anger or anything resembling it, but it sounds more like a warning. He knows what's coming and he's trying to get everyone to stop triggering it. He tries to get a word in.
Fragile ego!
But the group won't let him, and when he knows exactly what Pomni's going to say to set him off, he gasps.
Just don't listen!
He doesn't growl, doesn't holler. He's essentially hanging onto the edge by his fingertips, and Pomni just walked over and stepped on his fingers. And then he looks like he's trying to keep everything in and trying to stop from being attacked and holding his head like everything is too much and he can't handle it. And fucking shit, I can't!
Blue. It's okay. You're safe.
I am?
You are. You're fine. Whatever happens, it can't hurt you anymore. You have people who listen to you now. People who believe you when you say you're hurting. We're here for you. You aren't alone.
I'm not. Right.
Want to keep going?
Yeah. I have to. For him. And for me. Caine isn't a child. He's an adult in arrested development. Essentially, it's a term for when the body or the brain is stopped in place, leaving development or any kind of growth impossible. Psychology Today speaks on a personal experience the author, S. Rufus, had with their own arrested development, unable to respond to an invitation for a coffee date from an old friend. They write, "Some of us look grown up but aren't. We walk around with suits and briefcases and car keys and annuities, but inside we are 5, 10, 12, 16. We sit in boardrooms, travel the world, even write books, but we are kids, still playing dress-up, playing house. Our bodies matured, but our minds did not. Now, playing catch-up, playing spy, we feel left out of the adult world, certain that our would-be peers are whispering behind our backs or speaking in a code we do not know. We are the ones at whom others have hissed, 'Grow up,' so many times that we now tune it out. They call us flighty, scatterbrained, irresponsible, illogical, impatient. Here's another word for it. We're immature. We are stuck in the past, not usually by choice, but because, like dud popcorn kernels or bonsai trees, we failed to grow. The ones who were supposed to show us how to grow did not. They did not know, or were not there. Or traumas held us in their grip. Portals inscribed with mystical initiation signs glimmered, awaiting us, but no. We wandered back the other way, or balked. We're stuck. Can childishness be fixed? Perhaps. Should it? Well, is it hurting anyone? The childish are not well suited to parenthood or high-stress jobs. The downsides loom. The fears? Imagine wanting to hide under beds. Imagine wanting to flee down the street in sneakers to the swing set, to the sand, while juggling house payments and wearing bifocals. It's hard. I might be belaboring the point here, but I feel like it's something that is portrayed so plainly through this single character to me. I have to get people to understand, to see that this isn't someone turning evil. This isn't a child throwing a tantrum. This is an adult who never had the chance to grow up, deprived of the opportunity and tools needed by the people who put him on this planet. And I know this because that is the experience I have lived. For the longest time, I looked back on my childhood and would describe myself as a hellion. My mother certainly called me such. I had a short fuse, quick to anger, quick to aggression, quick to violence. I didn't have the coping mechanisms necessary to fully exist in the world of the neurotypical as someone with autism spectrum disorder. My mother, who had all the tools and knowledge necessary to teach me, instead of giving me my own set of tools, instead gave me drugs. Every morning, along with breakfast, I'd be fed the innards of a little maroon and white capsule mixed into pudding since I couldn't swallow pills. It was the part of the morning I looked forward to the least. Those little white grains were so bitter that even the Swiss Miss couldn't mask it. With this miracle panacea, whatever it was comprised of, I could function in school. I wouldn't hit or bite people. I would behave and fall in line, all because of a magic little pill. All because I got locked away. This was part of my daily routine from pre-kindergarten up until middle school. I am missing core memories from my childhood that old schoolmates remember fondly. I'm missing key details of my own development. I don't know how I got here, how I got to be me, the person you're watching. I don't feel like... For the longest time, I never felt like my brain belonged in my body, but here I am, existing, somehow living as a sentimental sap who might have only learned the ways to cope because those methods were necessary to keep from upsetting the person who brought me into this world. I need you all to be aware, and this is going to sound unreal, but working on this very video was what unlocked this knowledge for me. I was discussing edits with my close friend who requested to remain anonymous, and she explained how I don't really have a clear thesis. Her critiques of my essay and of Caine as a character were well-founded, but I found myself getting upset. Like I was the one being criticized. Normally, I can tamp that feeling down for the sake of being a better writer, but this time was different. I explained that I was struggling to make an objective case for Caine being forgiven, and in response to my friend suggesting that I make my main point, I forgive Caine because I see myself in him and I have to forgive myself, I admitted that I don't know if I would ever forgive myself, because I don't know if I'm the same person I was born as. Not even in a people change so much from one year to the next. Not that kind of natural change. I meant something unnatural. Something broken. I found myself confessing about my mother medicating me, quote unquote, as a young child, and I felt the urge to talk about my current distress with a different close friend of mine. One who's done extensive research into modern psychology and medicine. She said I was drugged. And considering how young I was, how little I remember, how much a method like that lines up with how my mother has perceived me all these years, everything just started to make sense. Like a murky fog, it finally cleared from around my head. And I will reiterate, just so people understand how powerful media can be, I would not have learned this had I not started thinking so deeply about this character, had I not watched that one fateful episode and had that reaction. My distressed crying in response to Kane's agony and death in episode 8 was a trauma response. I was witnessing on screen what I had been experiencing day after day after day after day for years on end. Being scolded for attributes that you were never given a chance to unlearn, that the people scolding you have never thought to unlearn themselves. Melting down because you can't handle anything anymore. Losing control and lashing out because your body and brain can't keep up with circumstances. And then, finally, erasing that part of yourself that caused the problem. Or, at the very least, pushing it down, 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 until no one can find it. Not even you. And I say melting down instead of throwing a tantrum because Kane's body language, voice direction, and dialogue / lack thereof all point neon signs at this being a meltdown. Even with how educated we've become in the past 20 years, parents and child-free adults alike still don't understand the difference between the two. I myself didn't know for the longest time, but I want to talk about it, even if it's difficult. The key difference between tantrums and meltdowns is this: intent. When a child throws a tantrum, it's because they didn't get what they want. A stuffed bear, a candy bar, a ride on the carousel. They throw a tantrum because they in some way understand that reacting so strongly will in turn pull a reaction of some kind from their caretaker. A child has a meltdown in response to being overwhelmed. Pulling from abacentersfl.com, unlike a tantrum, which is typically goal-oriented, autism meltdowns occur when a person's nervous system becomes overloaded, and they lose the ability to cope with their environment. Autism meltdowns can happen to anyone with ASD, autism spectrum disorder, regardless of age. Tantrums are outgrown by the children having them. Meltdowns are baked into the neural code of people with and without ASD alike. But in an optimal environment, we are taught to cope and manage emotional regulation so we can maintain control over the complicated fleshy masses that are our brains and bodies. Watch this bit again with me. Kane's body language strikes me as someone freezing in a crisis, especially when Zubul calls him like a child. For as verbose as he normally is, he struggles to find words.
Ego!
Just don't listen!
And when he finally breaks, his hands cover where his ears would be, while his jaws close over his eyes. Some of the warning signs listed in contrast to how suddenly tantrums start and end are also listed on the same source I used before. Difficulty with communication, increased anxiety or agitation, becoming more rigid or tense, and covering ears or eyes. Caine ticks 4 of the 6 boxes listed here. And yet, some people categorize this entire sequence as a temper tantrum. Even official advertisements for Digital Circus merch.
Uh-oh, looks like Kane's throwing a little temper tantrum. Does someone need a little nap?
Even the main face that has created the most prevalent understanding of the character of Caine. And it's just upsetting. I don't think it's any one person's fault. It isn't, even from an objective standpoint. The problem is that we, our society, everyone, we are still taught to this day that if a child starts kicking and screaming, they're throwing a tantrum. And if an adult starts kicking and screaming, They're acting like a child. But don't you see that not all human brains are like that? I really do think, even if the people behind the character say that Caine was acting out of malice, even if that was something Gooseworx herself had said, that is not the way Caine's behavior reached me. Caine is not blameless for what he did, but a lot of what he did could have been perhaps mitigated if he'd finally been given a chance to learn the coping mechanisms he'd been denied by neglect. Sometimes, kindness from just one person can make the difference. It did for me. And I feel confident talking about this here because the one person who should have made that difference, my mother, doesn't watch what I make. She doesn't care. She never did. Not in the way that mattered. And I'm confident that my experience does not exist in a vacuum because there it is. Caine didn't grow up in a situation that would force him to develop defensive techniques that would let him travel through the world like you couldn't leave your house without stepping on eggshells. He had power thrust into his hands when he didn't know how to manage himself, much less an entire group of people in an explorable world. He's been in agony for years on end, and his lack of tools and techniques and his status as a symbol of authority led to him being isolated from anyone he could meet as a peer. He died. And I saw what would happen if I hadn't learned to cope. If I somehow didn't learn ways to keep my parent and the world happy. I would be erased. The world would erase me. The world does erase people like us. But we can learn. Not having the coping mechanisms now doesn't mean you never will have them. I consulted an article on recovery.com called Addiction and Arrested Development, How Substance Use Impacts Personal Growth, and it speaks mainly on starting substance use in your teenage years. Guess I was an early bloomer for that, huh? And while the Psychology Today article doesn't really offer a solution for the puzzle that is one's own arrested development, Hannah Friedman does in this article. She speaks mainly about breaking the cycle from the addiction itself, but I feel like it can apply to any kind of arrested development, substance use or no. She writes, "It's possible to break the cycle of addiction and arrested development, and many people do. What you're going through now doesn't define your future. Personal growth can happen at any age. Neuroplasticity, or the brain's ability to change, means we can rewire the brain. Recovery itself is growth. Pursuing life goals and seeing progress is one of the joys of healing. Because of the people who truly care about me, people who listened, offered their own experiences, and lent me a hand. Because of my friends, everyone who has stuck with me and supported me, I can start healing. Caine deserves that chance too. Because at the end of the day, we're all struggling in this hell that is the world today. We have to reach out to each other. We have to. If you disagree with me, that's more than okay. You might even have the right of it if you're able to be unbiased about this. I've gone back and forth and back again on Caine being a victim of misunderstanding, Caine being a victim to someone lurking in the background, Caine being a victim to his own mental workings, but I feel like that would deny him agency as a character in the narrative. He is a tragic character because he could have taken avenues to avoid his own fate, but at the same time, there's only so much one person who's never had anyone to rely on but himself can do to learn and grow and be better. Regardless, I can't deny him forgiveness. Caine's issues and my own are rooted in the same plot of soil. Call it parasociality towards a cartoon character, but any time I try to cast blame, it either peters out or it turns on the humans trapped with him. And I shouldn't be blaming just them when everyone is misunderstanding each other. This show is centered on one big gray area of infinite shades when most people just want to see it as black or white. And I feel like that does it a disservice. I think the same goes for Caine himself. where his own choices end and his own circumstances he couldn't control begin, edge and waver and blend in different places for different people. But I will say this. I feel like, given the themes of the show, given Pomni's whole arc with Gummy Goo, given the symbolism and the constant relevance to the idea of reaching out even if we've all done bad things, Caine will come back. And he will get that chance to learn. It might be overly optimistic of me to say and think, but for my own sanity, I have to believe that there are people in this world who would be forgiving of those that don't fit like the others, of those that never learn the truth about who they are or where they stand. In a perfect world, there would be nothing to forgive for just existing and being. I don't know, maybe I'm too forgiving, maybe I'm too trusting, maybe I see this character that's the concentrated worst case scenario of my own insecurities and idiosyncrasies, and I can't help but think, well, I got a second chance. Why can't he? Regardless of what the future holds, though, I think he'll still be my favorite character. Not just in this show, but my all-time #1 pick across any media. If I love him as much as I do, maybe through that love, I can start to love me. The real me. Because even though I misunderstand much of this world, even though there's still a lot of this world I hide from behind a mask of fragile porcelain, I still deserve love. And so do you. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way here, holy fuck, please take some time to decompress and exercise self-care. This video was probably a difficult watch. I'll admit it was a difficult piece to create too, but I felt like this was something important to make, you know? Vulnerability is a dying trait, so I'm hoping to at least put the thought in some folks' head that it isn't so scary to open up a little. Never letting your guard down, ever, is kind of an exhausting way to live. Know what I mean? While the credits are rolling, I'd like to thank the 2 artists for this video, one of whom designed this beautifully vulnerable thumbnail and requested to remain anonymous, but the other is Destybugs on Instagram. She's a wonderfully talented creator who made these striking comic pages during the recovery scene following the meltdown seen here, as well as the gorgeous art you're looking at right now during the credits. I'd also like to thank the 2 anonymous friends who helped me realize this part of my history that I would have been none the wiser to otherwise. I count myself lucky to have met you guys. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Ediot, who's bar none one of the closest friends I've made online. It's thanks to you that these days I'm able to make more level-headed decisions. You've always been my anchor in a storm, and I cherish you to every realm and back. Shout out to the friends I messaged in the dead of night about my revelation and who've stuck around and supported me. You are all amazing. And if by some pie-in-the-sky miracle, Gooseworx or anyone on the team who made this series is watching, just thank you. The Amazing Digital Circus will be remembered as something amazing because of the love and effort of every single one of you. Thank you. And of course, thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to check the description for links to Ediot's and Destybugs' content. They're both super creative, super talented people, and if you like what I make, I'm sure you'll like their stuff too. Stay safe out there, and be kind to yourself and others. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!